Every die-hard NFL fan knows about the legends, icons, and Hall of Famers who forever changed their franchise for the better. But which players on your team had elite production but never really got the credit and recognition that they deserved? Well, today that's what we're here to address. So let's dive into the biggest forgotten superstar in every NFL team's history. And hey, a big shout out to Eagles 3D for suggesting this video. Arizona Cardinals, Luis Sharpe. Sharpe spent his entire career with the Cardinals, which spanned from 1982 to 1994. But they were constantly among football's worst teams over that span, so Sharpe's contribution in the trenches were largely overlooked. Sharpe was one of football's premier left tackles in the 80s, earning 3 Pro Bowl nods plus a second-team All-Pro selection in 1990. It's just too bad that the Redbirds couldn't build a contender around him. Atlanta Falcons, Mike Ken. Like Sharpe, Ken was one of the best, albeit also one of the most overlooked, offensive linemen of his era. Ken spent the entirety of his 17-year career with the Falcons from 1978 to 1994. Ken was a 5-time Pro Bowler who earned 3 first-team and 2 second-team All-Pro nods. He is currently one of the franchise's biggest Hall of Fame snubs, but perhaps someday he'll get his break. Baltimore Ravens, Chris McAlister. Hard for McAlister to stand out when he played on a defense that featured fellow star cornerback Rod Woodson and all-time greats in Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Terrell Suggs. But in his prime, there weren't many better shutdown ball-hawking corners than the 3-time Pro Bowler who helped Baltimore to a Super Bowl 35 championship in the 2000 season. McAlister's 138 pass defenses are the most in franchise history. Buffalo Bills, Joe Ferguson. Ferguson played for the Bills from 1973 to 1984. He led the league in passing yards during the 1977 season and helped Buffalo to the postseason 3 times, going as far as the divisional round in 1981. Ferguson retired as the Bills' all-time leader in completions, passing yards, and passing touchdowns before Jim Kelly smashed those records. Carolina Panthers, Muhsin Muhammad. Muhammad was a beast of a wide receiver in Carolina, no matter which quarterback was throwing him the ball. The 2-time Pro Bowler helped Carolina to NFC title game appearances in 1996, 2003, and 2005. In 2003, the Panthers made an unexpected run to Super Bowl 38, where they ended up dropping a heartbreaker to the New England Patriots. As a Panther, Muhammad hauled in 696 receptions for 9,255 yards and 50 touchdowns. He was often overshadowed by fellow star receiver Steve Smith Sr., thus making Muhammad a forgotten superstar. Chicago Bears, Steve McMichael. Easy to overlook a Super Bowl champion defensive tackle and a 2-time Pro Bowler with 95 career sacks. That was life for McMichael, because he played on a stacked Bears defense that also featured Hall of Famers Richard Dent, Mike Singletary, and Dan Hampton, plus other underrated stars like Otis Wilson and Wilbur Marshall. Cincinnati Bengals, Reggie Williams. The standout linebacker spent his entire 14-year career with the Bengals. The number 82 selection of the 1976 draft racked up 63.5 sacks and 16 interceptions throughout his career. And yet, he didn't even earn a single Pro Bowl or All-Pro nod. Williams was instrumental in helping Cincy to Super Bowl appearances in the 1981 and 88 seasons, both of which resulted in a loss to the 49ers. Maybe if the Bengals had won one of those games, Williams' illustrious career would have gotten a little more recognition. Cleveland Browns, Dick Shafrath. If Shafrath was in the Hall of Fame, he wouldn't be a forgotten superstar. But alas, more than half a century after his last NFL season, Shafrath remains one of the all-time biggest Hall of Fame snubs. The 7-time Pro Bowler and 4-time first-team All-Pro offensive lineman played both tackle and guard. A 5-star run blocker for Jim Brown, Shafrath helped the Browns to an NFL championship in 1964. Dallas Cowboys, Ed Too Tall Jones. Jones is more famous because of his nickname, Too Tall, but let me tell you, the 6'9" giant was a big-time player for the Cowboys under legendary head coach Tom Landry. Jones, one of 4 Cowboys to reach the 100-sack mark, was also a 3-time Pro Bowl defensive end who led Dallas to a Super Bowl 12 championship in the 1977 season. So much for being too tall to play football. Denver Broncos, Rod Smith. For an undrafted player, we'd say Smith turned out pretty good. He became John Elway's top receiver in the final years of number 7's career, helping Denver to consecutive Super Bowl championships in the 1997 and 98 seasons. Smith, a 3-time Pro Bowler, exceeded 1,000 yards receiving in 8 of his 12 NFL seasons. Seriously, how many NFL receivers can say that? Detroit Lions, Wayne Walker. Walker's entire 15-year NFL career was spent with the Lions, which spanned from 1958 to 72. What made Walker so unique was the fact that he played both linebacker and place kicker for the Lions. That's not something that you see every day. Walker was a total game wrecker on defense. He could lower the boom on his opponents and then come out and kick field goals. How cool is that? The 3-time Pro Bowler was also a 3-time first-team All-Pro and 2-time second-team All-Pro. Green Bay Packers, Sterling Sharpe. Sterling, the older brother of Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe, could have been in Canton if a neck injury didn't tragically end his career at the age of 29. Sharpe spent 7 seasons in the NFL. He was a 3-time first-team All-Pro and a 5-time Pro Bowler. He led the NFL in catches 3 times, in receiving touchdowns twice, and in receiving yards for the 1992 season. Houston Texans, Mario Williams. Is it weird putting a former first overall pick on here? Well, it really shouldn't be. For one, the Texans were irrelevant during Williams' first 5 NFL seasons. J.J. Watt's arrival in 2011 changed everything, but the likes of Arian Foster and Andre Johnson also overshadowed Williams' greatness in Houston. The number 1 pick of the 2006 NFL Draft left for the Bills in 2012 free agency. He spent 4 years there before playing 1 year for Miami in 2016. Williams, a 4-time Pro Bowler, retired with 97.5 sacks, 21 pass defenses, and 16 forced fumbles. Indianapolis Colts, Bobby Boyd. Boyd was a member of the powerhouse Colts team from the 60s that were led by quarterback Johnny Unitas. Playing with so many other stars, coupled with the fact that Boyd only played 9 seasons, were obviously factors in the whole forgotten superstar thing. Another notable Hall of Fame snub, Boyd was a star corner who racked up 57 interceptions while earning 5 All-Pro nods. He led the Colts to the 1968 NFL Championship and was named to the 60s All-Decade team. And yet, the man still isn't in Canton. Jacksonville Jaguars, Jimmy Smith. Smith won a Super Bowl ring with the Cowboys in 1992, but was seldom used. After missing the entire 1993 season, he joined the expansion Jaguars franchise in 1995. Smith and quarterback Mark Brunell quickly emerged as one of the game's elite offensive duos. Smith helped Jacksonville to AFC title game appearances in the 1996 and 99 seasons, racking up 7 straight 1,000-yard campaigns from 96 to 2002. Kansas City Chiefs, Neil Smith. Before joining the rival Broncos, where he won back-to-back Super Bowls, Smith was a force on the Chiefs' defense. Smith and Hall of Famer Derek Thomas formed a prolific duo on D, turning Kansas City into an AFC powerhouse during the 90s. Named to the 1990s All-Decade team, Smith had 85.5 sacks over his 9 years as a Chief, earning 5 Pro Bowl nods with the organization. Las Vegas Raiders, Rod Martin. Martin was a key cog of the Raiders squad under Hall of Fame head coach Tom Flores, winning 2 Super Bowl championships in the 80s. Playing with a bunch of Hall of Famers meant that Martin never got the recognition that he deserved, which is a shame. Martin really was one of the NFL's premier linebackers during the 80s, recording 56.5 sacks and 14 interceptions during his storied career. Los Angeles Chargers, John Hadl. Many best remember Hadl for being the centerpiece of a blockbuster trade that blew up in the Packers' faces in 1974. But you know, when he was a Charger, Hadl was one of the game's elite pocket passers. Hadl helped the Chargers to a blowout win over the Patriots in the 1963 AFL Championship game, the franchise's lone title to date. Hadl was a 4-time AFL All-Star and 2-time Pro Bowler who led the AFL in passing yards twice. Los Angeles Rams, Roman Gabriel. Gabriel enjoyed the success with both the Rams and the Eagles. He spent most of his career in LA, winning the 1969 MVP award after throwing for 2,549 yards and 24 TDs, both of which were very impressive numbers back in the day. The 4-time Pro Bowler and 2-time NFL passing touchdowns leader retired with 29,444 passing yards and 201 touchdowns. Absolutely incredible numbers in that defense-dominated era of football. Miami Dolphins, Mark Clayton. Clayton and the other Mark Duper, were Dan Marino's go-to targets during their storied run together in South Beach. But Clayton, a 5-time Pro Bowler and 2-time receiving touchdowns leader, was ever so slightly the superior wideout. Yet, like Duper, many seem to forget at just how dominant Clayton actually was. This model of consistency spent 10 years as a Dolphin, recording 550 receptions for 8,643 yards and 81 touchdowns. Minnesota Vikings, Kevin Williams. Williams was a beast on the Vikings defensive line for 11 seasons from 2003 to 2011. The star defensive tackle out of Oklahoma State was a 5-time first-team All-Pro and a member of the 2000s All-Decade team, having racked up 60 sacks, 68 pass defenses, and 8 forced fumbles during his time in Mini. New England Patriots, Stanley Morgan. Morgan is the Patriots' all-time leader in receiving yards with 10,352, and only Rob Gronkowski has more receiving touchdowns. The 4-time Pro Bowler recorded a ridiculous 19.4 yards per catch as a Patriot, putting up consistently great numbers despite never having an elite QB throwing him the ball. New Orleans Saints, Marcus Colston. Colston spent his entire 10-year career in the Big Easy, arriving with Sean Payton and Drew Brees in 2006. Colston would be the longest tenured weapon for Brees, as the two powered New Orleans to 5 playoff appearances and a of course, a Super Bowl 44 championship. Incredibly, Colston was never named to a Pro Bowl despite 6 seasons with 1,000 yards receiving, as well as being the franchise leader in every major receiving category by a country mile. New York Giants, Amani Toomer. Once Plaxico Burress arrived in the Meadowlands, Toomer had to accept a lesser role within the Giants. Thus, Toomer's numbers and recognition dropped noticeably over his final years. Like Colston, Toomer is the Giants' all-time receiving leader in every major category, and yet he didn't earn a single Pro Bowl selection. Also like Colston, he played a big role in helping his team win a championship, leading the Giants to a stunning upset over the previously undefeated Patriots in Super Bowl 42. New York Jets, Mo Lewis. Many only know the name Mo Lewis because of his hit on Drew Bledsoe in the 2001 game, which caused an injury and forced the Patriots to turn to Tom Brady. The 3-time Pro Bowl linebacker did it all, recording 52.5 sacks, 21 pass defenses, 14 interceptions, and 26 forced fumbles. Philadelphia Eagles, Troy Vincent. If his name is familiar right now, it's because Vincent is employed as the NFL's Executive VP of Football Operations. But some time ago, this guy was also a beast of a football player. Vincent had his best years in Philly, earning 5 straight Pro Bowl nods from 1999 to 2003. He co-led the NFL in interceptions in 1999 with 7. And as an Eagle, Vincent had 28 interceptions and 91 pass defenses. Pittsburgh Steelers, L.C. Greenwood. Hard to comprehend Greenwood being kept out of Canton this long. Not his fault the Steelers' 70s dynasty was loaded with Hall of Famers. Greenwood was a member of all 4 Steelers Super Bowl championship teams in the Steel Curtain era. He was only a 6-time Pro Bowler and a 1970s All-Decade Team selection with 78 career sacks. The San Francisco 49ers, Roger Craig. A backbone of the 49ers dynasty, Craig helped them to 3 Super Bowl championships in the 80s. This 1980s All-Decade selection just couldn't capture the spotlight from Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. But Craig's contribution to the 49ers dynasty should not be ignored. The 4-time Pro Bowler is 3rd all-time among 49ers in both rushing touchdowns and rushing yards. Oh, and he's just one of 3 players to record 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season, joining the likes of Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey. Seattle Seahawks, Kurt Warner. Not to be confused with Hall of Fame QB Kurt Warner, the other Kurt Warner made a name for himself on the gridiron as well. He was the number 3 pick of the legendary 1983 draft behind Hall of Famers John Elway and Eric Dickerson. A 4-time 1,000-yard rusher, Warner won 1983 and 86 AFC Offensive Player of the Year honors and earned 3 Pro Bowl and just as many second-team All-Pro nods. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Keyshawn Johnson. Johnson in the Tampa offense was always overlooked because of that star-studded defense that propelled the Bucs to a Super Bowl 37 championship. But Johnson's superb 4-year run in Tampa and his contributions during their championship season should not be overlooked either. In just 4 years as a Buck, he had 298 receptions for 3,828 yards and 17 touchdowns. Tennessee Titans, Derrick Mason. Mason, Steve McNair, and Eddie George were a prolific offensive trio that helped the Titans to a Super Bowl 34 appearance. Mason crossed 1,000 yards receiving 4 times as a Titan and also 4 times as a Raven. Washington Commanders, Santana Moss. Moss is just one of several notable receivers who never had an elite QB throwing him the football. Nonetheless, he found ways to produce big numbers in DC. The 1-time Pro Bowler helped a struggling Washington franchise to 3 playoff appearances. He's 3rd on the franchise's all-time receptions list with 581 and 4th in receiving yards with 7,867. But who do you think is the biggest forgotten superstar in NFL history? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps set its own. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.